the reason why I wanted to play that song for you tonight is because there is a divine peace that comes upon our hearts and our spirits in the Father's love. There's something about the love of a father that is so comforting. It's so reassuring. It builds our confidence. It takes our shaking, ever-changing world and makes it feel stable again. It takes our insecure hearts and makes us feel accepted and loved and secure again. And it empowers us to believe in ourselves and believe that anything is possible. But the part of the Father's heart that I want to focus on tonight is the part that brings us peace. If you have your Bibles with you, I want you to open them to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. And I'm going to read to you a portion of Scripture that's very familiar, but we're going to approach this passage of Scripture in a very unique way. Matthew chapter 6, beginning with verse 5. Here Jesus is telling us about the model of prayer and how we are to pray. And I pray that by the Spirit of God tonight, our eyes would be open to see prayer in a whole new light. That we would see prayer as more than just a duty and more than just a place like where we work for God and more than just a place where we go and ask God for what we want or need. But we see prayer as a place of communion, interaction, intimacy, and help for not just our natural provision of physical things, but for the emotional and the spiritual as well. The jealous heart of God, I want you to see that, the jealous heart of God in what Jesus is saying right here. That the jealous heart of God is not one, just put it in your spirit, it's not like, we think of God's jealousy, it's not a jealousy of like, God is it's not a negative jealousy. God is so in love with you that jealousy is just has to be there. Does that make sense? When you really, really, really love someone and you're in love with someone, you are jealous for their time and you're jealous for their heart. And God is jealous not because out of a dictatorial right, like I made you, therefore I have the right. Although that is true, the motive of his heart and the jealousy that he has for you flows from a heart that is burning with passionate love for you, that is in love with you here and now in this moment. And he's so in love with you, he says, I don't want to share you with anyone else. You remember as a kid growing up, Christmas time would come around and you would have that one thing that you really, really wanted, right? We always had that one thing that we really, really wanted. And I remember, you would go through all the different gifts and the parents, at least my parents, they would strategically set it up in such a way, because my dad, he's strategic in everything he does. Like, he can't help it. He can't not be strategic at any point in time. He strategically set it up in such a way that we would get to the big one last, or almost last. He wanted to save the best for last. So we would be going through, and the whole time, I'm like, oh, this is cool, but is the big one there? Is it there? Is it there? I would go, it's like, oh, man, it's not it. Oh, I'm just looking for it. And then when you get that one, that you get the big one. You get the one, you're jealous for that thing. You don't want to share it with anybody else. Like, no, this is mine, and you can't have any of it, whatever it is. You can't. It's like, I'm going to go up to my room now. Goodbye. Thanks, parents. You're a means to an end. I'm going over here to do what I really want, which is this toy, or whatever. And someone knock on the door. What? I'm busy. That's the way God feels about you. You were the dream of his heart since before the foundation of the world. And now that he has you as his very own, he says, I don't want to share you with anyone else. It's like, oh, this is so precious to me. I don't want to share it. Like someone, I could just picture like, this doesn't actually happen, but this is about the picture I have. Like I'm just up there just having a great time with Abba Father, just loving on him, and he's loving on me. And then like the angel like knocks on the door and he goes, get out of here, I'm busy. That's the way God feels about you. He doesn't want your time with him interrupted by menial things. That's why I don't take my phone with me into the prayer closet. And if I do take it with me into a time of prayer, it's on airplane mode, and I take it with me for the voice memos, because when God gives me a song, I record it. Hallelujah. But that's how God feels about you. So I want you to see that jealous heart of God in the place of prayer in this passage. Verse 5, Matthew 6:5. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. Why? Why is that? Like, why does Jesus have an issue with this? Because prayer, God designed prayer to be a place of intimacy. And now these people are taking the place of intimacy and using it for their own benefit in public. It's kind of like, in the world, guys often look at their girlfriends as trophies. And it's like, I heard a story of a young guy, he's not young anymore, but when he was young, when he first got married, he bought this two-piece, they were going on a cruise for their honeymoon, and he had bought this two-piece bikini for his wife because he wanted to show off her body to everyone on the cruise, basically. And she got upset and corrected him, praise God. Tell him, it was like, listen, I don't know, if it was me, I'd be like, listen, I don't want no guys trying to partake of that which is mine only. Thank you very much. But that's the way God feels about when we take something that's meant for intimacy and try to use it for public benefit. When we take our supposed prayer life and we're supposedly praying to God, but we're doing it in such a way because, God, I want to be seen as spiritual before the people, because what's more important to me than my intimacy with you is what they think of me. And how often, unfortunately, in our Christian walk, do we, even in subtle ways, even in small ways, we do something because we don't want to appear as unspiritual. You know, we won't lift up our hands when no one else is lifting up their hands in worship. But if everyone else is lifting up their hands, then I better lift mine too. You know, I won't, or you have those people who will, you know, they'll put like an empty envelope or a $1 bill in the offering bucket as it goes by just to be seen as doing something. And what we're telling God is, God, what's more important to me right now than my genuine interaction with you is what other people think of me. And in the place of worship, God, he's jealous for us. He said, I don't want that. I'm here to engage with you. Are you here to engage with me? Are you here to engage with me? Or are you here for your own benefit? Hello. All right, let's move on. I didn't even plan any of that. Praise God. Verse 6. But you, when you pray, go into your room. See, that's where the parents got it from. Go to your room. No, kidding. Go into your room. And when you have shut your door, pray to the Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. See, it's not that God is against open reward. It's not that he's against us having public recognition before men for our genuine relationship with him. But he wants the primary motive of our heart to be interaction with him, not the rewards of men. See, what the devil does, he tries to get us to focus on the secondary reward. Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God and all this righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you. And so God, but God, he says, or that's what God says, but then the devil, he says, no, seek first all these things to be added unto you, and then you can worry about the kingdom of God. He flips it on his head. He said, the devil's trying to get you to focus on getting all your ducks in a row. And because he knows that as long as that's what your focus is, he has no problem knocking them out. It's like, you're just like, oh yeah, I just got it. Oh, what happened? No. Back. I don't know if any of you are OCD like me, but everything has to be straight. You'll be sitting here like, just making it perfect. And you just get all the in a row, and then the devil just comes, and you're like, not again! Back, okay. And God's like, if you just put me first, I'll take care of all that. I want to be generous to you. I want to give you the desires of your heart, but I have to be the first desire of your heart. Because God desires the things he gives us to enhance our love for him, not distract it. When God gives you something, he doesn't want you to say, be like the kid at Christmas, but like, thanks, bye. I'm going to go spend time with what I'm really interested in now. Hello. Because whatever has your time has your heart. Which is why if you want to fall in love with Jesus, spend time with him. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. And you can go and you can sit down in your room, in the place of prayer, and you can just have a conversation with him. You can just put on a worship song and worship. You don't have to have the super deep spiritual encounter. You don't have to have gold dust. Gold dust is great. But gold dust is not a prerequisite for an intimate relationship with Jesus. Amen? It just takes time. It just takes time. I remember asking the Father once, I said, God, why is it so often that whenever we go through a season where we kind of pull back a little bit in the secret place, where we allow ourselves to get, maybe you've never done that, I've done that. Allowed myself to get a little too busy, and then I kind of pulled back a little bit from the place of prayer, and then I'll repent, and I'll get back into it, and I'll be getting in, and it's like, oh, God, it almost kind of feels like I'm starting over. And I said, God, why is that? Because I know that I'm not earning anything from you. I know you're not holding back from me. You're not sitting there back, well, you didn't spend much time with me last month, so you just got to crawl your way back. No, God, he's not. I was like, God, I know you're not withholding anything, so what's the deal? And he said, son, your heart's like a sponge. When you let it dry out, it takes a lot more water to get it soaked than it does if it was already damp. So the more consistent you spend a lot of time with him daily, the easier it is for you to feel his touch and his presence throughout the day. The easier it is for you to feel his nearness with you everywhere you go. And the more sensitive you are to even just a little whisper that he gives. Amen? You say, well, I thought you were talking about peace. Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows the things you have need of before you ask him. So, why is Jesus giving these instructions? Because he's trying to put it back on the heart. It's a heart issue. He's telling us, he's saying, it's not just finding the right words to say. It's not finding the right key phrases to repeat over and over and over again. And there are powerful truths that God will give us, and he'll give us a phrase that we can use, and our faith latches onto it. But it's not the phrase that empowers us. It's the fact that our faith is locked onto it. I remember we had a young guy get saved in California, and he started praying over everyone, praying for healing in the name of dude. Dude, heal him. Heal him, dude. And people will get healed. Say, well, God wouldn't do that. Well, he did. Why? Because God's more interested in your faith than he is in your correct vernacular. Okay? God's more interested in you stepping out and just believing him and trusting him than he is in you being doctrinally exactly correct. Yeah, and doctrine's important, don't get me wrong, but he's not an old, he's not one of those old stiff people that just is like caught up over like, well, this is just the way it's done, son. No, he's looking at the heart. He's looking at the heart. Amen? All right. You all thought I was going to get into the Lord's Prayer. Well, I didn't. Hallelujah. Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4. We're going to move into the peace. Say, where does the peace come from? It comes from two primary places. And if we look at the life of Jesus, we see him always in one of these two places. Always. At every point in time, he was always in one of these two places. And when you're living in either one of these two places, it's really, really easy to walk in peace. And I'll explain to you why in a moment. You with me? Okay. Philippians 4, beginning with verse 6. Here we go. Actually, let's go to verse 9. Philippians 4, verse 9, and let's put it up in the Amplified. Philippians 4, 9 in the Amplified. Practice what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. This is Paul speaking. And model your way of living on it. And the God of peace, of untroubled, undisturbed well-being will be with you. The first of the two areas, I kind of got this, I kind of flipped it around last moment, but it's all good. The first of the two areas is walking in the call. Being busy about the work of the Lord. Because when your focus and your eyes and your investment is in the Lord's work, when the enemy tries to unsettle you and tries to turn the waters around your boat, you're not going to be disturbed. You're not going to be disturbed because your investment is not in your own well-being, it's in his. That's why Jesus could take a nap on the boat and it's tossing and turning. The disciples are all freaking out like, we're going to die. And he said, no, I'll just get up and just rebuke the storm and I'll go back to bed. Because whenever you are, see what happens when you become invested, deeply invested in the work of the kingdom, you get a revelation. God is protecting you. He's providing for you. And as long as you're busy about his work, he's going to be busy about taking care of you. I mean, he takes care of all his children, but you're going to find that you're going to watch God work more actively in the people that are more active in his work than in the people who are just active trying to just have a normal life. Just trying to get their white picket fence and the two dogs named Toto and Frodo and whatever, 2.5 kids. Still trying to figure out the half kid portion. Maybe it was like the one in Solomon or in Solomon's day. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't. We'll just leave it there. I'm kidding. But maybe it's like a newborn baby. That's like half a kid, right? No. It's twice the work. Half the size, twice the trouble, right? All right, we're moving on. But when we are fully invested in the work of God, when we put our treasure, what is your treasure? It's your time, your talent, and your money. Your time, your talent, and your money. Whenever you're investing that into the kingdom of God and into his work, you will find a greater peace in your life. And it says it right here. It says, practice what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. Well, what have we learned and heard and seen in the Apostle Paul? We saw a man who was wholly dedicated to the call of God upon his life. We saw a man who would not back down from doing what the Lord had called him to do. And that varies for each of us, but the result is the same. The God of peace will guard your heart. He will take an active role in fighting off the assignments of the enemy to damage your emotional well-being. I'll say that again. When you are active in the work of the kingdom, God will be active in fighting against the assignments of the enemy to damage your emotional well-being. I like this. That word peace, it means untroubled and undisturbed well-being. God just puts a do not disturb sign on the door of your heart. And you just are not disturbed. The enemy comes and he's going to try and knock, and it says that do not disturb sign. He can't do anything about it. Say, hey, I'm busy about the Lord's work. I'm busy. You ever, get on my iPhone, whenever I get a call, if I'm busy, I have the option to hit a button and respond with a text, like, I'm busy, I'll talk to you later, or whatever. And that's what the peace of God does. Like when something tries to come, you're like, no, can't take that right now, I'm busy. I'm busy about the Lord's work. You can't bother me right now. I decline. I'm not going to give attention to that thing over there because I'm busy with something far more important than that little thing. When you get a report, like I did on Monday, that my truck needs $1,000 in repairs, plus 2 new tires. Praise God. I don't have to be stressed out because I don't have the money to fix my truck. It's not broken down, so don't worry. It still runs. But it's just leaking fluids all over the place. It's crying. It's like, I'm old. I don't want to run anymore. It's crying oil and transmission fluid. Praise God. all over the concrete. Okay. Anyways, I'm done. I'm done crying over that now. But whenever you get the report, you don't have to be stressed. You just say, I don't have to worry about that. Say, God, this is your truck. I'm just a steward of it. This is your money. I'm just a steward of it. I'm busy about your work, and you have to take care of me because I need this truck to do your work. And your word says that you'll supply all my needs according to your riches and glory, and I don't think $1,000 is beyond your budget. Hallelujah. The budget of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords exceeds my $1,000 repair bill. Glory to God. And I even took a step of faith. I was like, God, I'm gonna upgrade to the new iPhone. Praise God. It's like, I don't know if that was a step of faith or just my nerd side, like, saying, yes, technology. Technology is mine. Yeah, that's probably what it was. But I was just like, there's wisdom and balance and budget and all that, and that's very important. It's very important. But at the same time, we don't have to sit back and allow ourselves to become paralyzed because some circumstance came up and just tried to tell you that you can't make it. I'm not going to pull back and say, God, I need to pull back on my responsibility so I can get a part-time job on the side to pay all these bills. No. I say, God, you will take care of me. You will take care. Now, my immediate reaction was not so peaceful. Okay, I have to admit. My immediate reaction was, no, can't have it. Can't have my money. I began contemplating all the different things I could do to my truck. And how I could, and right in that moment, the lie of the enemy comes in and says, oh, you know what, the thing's old, you just need to trade it in, get a newer car, just get in debt, get that big monthly payment that you could probably barely afford. No. It's going to cost me way more money in the long run. So, but I know God doesn't want me getting into debt. He doesn't want me to become a slave to the heathen bankers. You know the Bible says that when you owe money to someone, you're their slave. Hello. Someone say ouch. Okay. Be busy about the Lord's work. Second area. Let's go back to verse 6. Philippians chapter 4. Now, here the first few words here, we're going to get a command. And then we're going to get this is how you fulfill the command I just gave you. Okay? Be anxious for, what's that word? Nothing. No, it doesn't say that. Maybe in the Message Bible, the remix. You know what that word anxious means, just in our modern dictionary? Anxious means full of mental distress or uneasiness because of fear of danger or misfortune or loss. So, being anxious for something is rooted in fear. It's rooted in a potential fear of damage or loss, of being hurt, of losing something, of missing out. And he's saying, be anxious for nothing. Don't allow any root of fear to take such a hold of your mind that it causes your mind to be worried and troubled. But set your mind on things above. So it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving. So here's the how. Let your requests be made known to God. Okay, so let's stop right there. So, circumstance comes up. He says, hold it, don't panic. I have a solution. You go to the place of prayer. Bring with you thanksgiving and make your requests known to God. So he says, you being at peace doesn't mean you don't go to prayer about it. You being at peace is going to be a result of you going to prayer about it. So the second area of walking in peace is the place of prayer, where our heart engages in intimacy with the heart of God. And with thanksgiving in the place of prayer, we make our requests known to God. So what does that look like? So let's say the situation, my truck, okay? I go into the place of prayer and I say, Father, I thank you that you have provided me with transportation. I thank you, Lord, that you have always provided for my needs, that every time when I've been in a situation like this, you've provided, even in ways that I didn't even ask for or expect. When I wasn't looking, you came up, snuck up behind me and said, bam, there you go. There's the provision. God, I thank you that you are faithful. I thank you that you never end. Father, I ask right now that you would provide, that you would provide the need, whether you supernaturally fix the vehicle or you provide the money or you get someone to donate the parts and labor, whatever it takes, God, I pray that you would provide a way, Father, for reliable transportation that doesn't need to be fixed. Praise God. Or something like that. It doesn't have to be even in so many words. And then what's going to happen? Okay, here's the promise. Okay, so we saw the command, we saw the how, now here's the promise, here's the fruit. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding. So it is beyond any human ability to comprehend. It will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Wow. So when we go into the place of prayer with thanksgiving, the peace of God guards our hearts. Why? Because when we engage in intimacy, we remind our souls of who we are talking to. We're talking to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We're talking to the one who has power over everything. We're talking to the one who spoke light into existence. And surely this little circumstance over here, he can take care of. He who has delivered us will deliver us. He who began a good work will bring it to completion. And say, God, I know you have to do this. You have to provide because I'm your servant. I'm being faithful to you. I'm busy about your work. You need this vehicle fixed, Father, so your servant can do your work. See how these two things tie together. Say, God, I'm busy about your work. And this is a tool that I need in order to fulfill your work. That's how I prayed in the MacBook that I got given supernaturally by an anonymous giver. I still don't know who gave it to me. It's been almost 4 years now. And this iPad. I said, God, I believe these things are going to be tools that are going to make me effective for your work. And I'm going to enjoy them too. Praise God. So I pray that you provide. And he did. And it was so cool because at the time, for both of those things, but specifically, I really remember with the MacBook. God, there was such a smile of God on my heart whenever he did that, and I wasn't even looking for it. Like I had been praying for it, but in that, in the last couple weeks or whatever, I'd kind of just not really thought about it a whole lot, and God just came and he just dropped that in my lap out of nowhere, and he told me, he said, I gave this to you to demonstrate my love for you. I just gave this to you just because I love you. And I remember just smiling, and I was so happy. And the gift actually added fuel to the fire of my love for him. I didn't take the laptop and say, thanks, God, go to my room. And, God was not a means to an end in my heart. See, when we tell kids about Santa Claus, which I hope none of you tell your kids that lie, the implication is what we're training them to think is we look at someone who has the ability to provide all our needs as a means to an end. I am good because I want something for me, and I've decided that my obedience is less valuable than this thing I want. I'm not being obedient in love. I'm being obedient as a means to an end. It's actually works-oriented. And we're training our kids to think of God that way because we train them to think of Santa that way. And to a kid, there's no difference. Santa's just God with a red cape or with a red robe, and who happens to live in the North Pole. It's the same thing. God says, no, I want to give you everything. But I want everything to cause you to give yourself to me more. I don't want that everything to feed your own selfish desires and cause your heart to drift away from me. The Bible warns us many times about the deceitfulness of riches. And I remember God spoke to Dr. Rodney Howard-Browne once. It was he was looking for a home, and he saw an ad for this home. It's a massive, massive mansion on acres. It's worth millions and millions of dollars, but the ad had a misprint, and it showed that it was worth, I don't remember the exact numbers, but $500,000 instead of $5 million. It was one zero too few. And so he goes there and talking to the guy, and the guy's basically just going to give him the house. And he was just overwhelmed. And even all the furniture, it's really nice furniture. And he went out, and there was a little creek in the back of the property, and he went out and stood on the creek and said, God, why are you doing this? I don't need this. I don't even want this. It's just me and my wife, and this thing is huge. And God spoke to him the purpose, the reason why he was giving him that. But before he spoke that, he told him this. He said, when everything means nothing to you, I will give you everything. When everything means nothing to you, I'll give you everything. Why? Because then I can trust you with it. Then when I can give it to you, I can trust that your heart is not going to go to the things, but it's going to stay on me. And what are we telling God when we've made a commitment for daily communion. But then we went out and we stayed out too late watching a movie, and we come home and say, God, I'm just kind of tired. We're telling him to say, God, my entertainment is more important. And listen, this is not to shame or condemn anyone. We've all done it. I've done it. Amen? But this is what when God spoke to Solomon in 2 Kings, I believe it's in 2 Kings, when Solomon was first becoming king, and God said, ask anything you will. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And Solomon said, God, I want you to give me wisdom so I can do the work of being king the best that I can for your glory. And God said, you know what, Solomon? Because that was your one request, because that was the supreme thing in your heart, because that was your one thing that you asked me, that you wanted to be empowered to give me glory and to do the call that I put upon your life, and you did not ask for riches, honor, and long life, I'm going to give you all those. In fact, not only that, I'm going to make you the richest man who's ever lived and whoever will live. See, we serve a God with a generous heart. He wants to lavish you with all kinds of stuff, but he wants to do it after it means nothing to you. Because you will then see it the way he sees it. It's fading. It's temporal. And your heart will cling to the eternal instead of the temporal. Let's stand. James, if I could get you up here. Play your beautiful golden fingers. Hallelujah. Walking in the peace of God. It's really not hard. Sometimes we get a little circumstance, a little challenge, and it gets challenging for a moment. But we just set our eyes on him. We say, God, I want to give you everything. I want to live for you. I'm not living for myself. See, the greatest stress you'll ever face in life is when you're living for yourself. In fact, if you're stressed, that's probably a sign that you are, to some degree. Because when we're truly living for him and him only, there's no stress. Jesus said, my burden is easy, my yoke is light. This is nothing. Hallelujah. Now, let's be honest for a moment. There's not a person in this room who's totally there. I'm not giving you just the next step tonight. I'm giving you a vision for where you can live. Something that's beyond just what you can achieve tomorrow, but something that you will grow into for the rest of your life. And you don't have to shame or condemn yourself and say, oh, well, it's been 3 weeks and I'm still not there. Well, good. Neither am I. It's okay. But I've had many times in prayer where I say, God, teach me how to trust you. This is not just some switch I can just flip on and say, it's, God, teach me how. Teach me how. Say, God, I make the choice. I've set my heart. I will trust you. Now teach me how to do it. Teach me how to live it in a real, heartfelt way. And how to not just live it, but love it. How to love trusting him. Amen? Hallelujah. Just begin to pray in the Spirit.